Hey everyone, welcome to the video. It is Thursday, which actually doesn't matter, but what does matter is that it is deadlift day. I'm gonna head over to the gym and knock out the last of the power lifts, which is the deadlift, and then I'm gonna do some more back exercises with a hypertrophy approach. I just landed from a sortie, which is why you may still be able to see the outline of the mask on my face, because it's been digging into my face for the last several hours. A little bit faster and funnier, maybe not funnier, faster on this intro to get over to the gym and get to work. I'm a bit pressed for time because I would like to try to catch breakfast before it closes, which is actually my dinner since I flew all night. I'm gonna get over to the gym, get the lifts knocked out. The deadlift is probably my favorite of the power lifts. It's not a scientific study reason or anything. I just like the lift. It feels like the most powerful lift to literally just hoist as much weight as you can off the ground. Without much more discussion, save for the voiceover, we'll get right over there and get to work, and then I'm gonna go eat. This is a little bit more the feeling that I'm accustomed to at home station, where I'm a bit more rushed for time or a bit more pressed for time to get into the gym and get the workout done and move on with the day. So let's get right to work.
The deadlift targets several muscles that actually account for the extension of the hips, like the glutes and the hamstrings. On top of that, a bunch of other muscles throughout the back are involved in keeping the upper body situated throughout the motion. From the fighter pilot perspective, you're again looking at a bunch of muscle groups that directly relate to G tolerance in the cockpit, so along with the squat, the deadlift has to factor into the workout split. As much as I like the lift, I'm the first to admit that this whole body involvement is quickly exhausting as I work my way up in weight. It's important to keep that expectation of exhaustion as part of the exercise, I think, so that you can stay focused on maintaining good technique regardless. I start with warm-up sets for the hamstrings before I get into heavy 3 or 5x5 for the week. The warm-up sets are closer to a straight leg deadlift than my working sets usually, as an effort to stretch the hamstrings and prime them for the lift. Occasionally I'll use Romanian deadlifts where the weight doesn't come to rest on the ground at all in my warm-up sets to accomplish the same goal. I'll post another Jeff Nippard video link in the description talking about perfect deadlift technique, again from the expert lifter perspective, so if you have time you should check it out. A quick key point on technique that I focus on is a straight bar path from the floor to the top of the lift with the hips hinged back and the lower back engaged like you'll see me set up before the pull. Some rounding of the upper back or the thoracic spine is acceptable, but it's something that I monitor throughout the lift to make sure it doesn't migrate and impact my technique as a whole. If I start to notice under the heavier weights that I'm at risk of compromising lumbar spine stability or just generally feeling like technique is threatened, then it's time to change something, lower the weight, or stop the lift altogether and reattempt another time. I tend to do touch and go deadlifts when I'm going for the 5x5 in particular, but that's not a requirement by any means. In fact, single reps with a full reset at the bottom are recommended in some cases to avoid some risk of injury or excessive ache, so I'll utilize that form as well throughout any lifting program. I also tend to resist the descent of the weight and the eccentric or lowering portion of the movement to a small degree. Plenty of qualified experts out there recommend almost dropping the bar on the return rather than using that approach, specifically to speed the recovery process and avoid some injury risk from the lowering process. I think it's good to keep those considerations in mind and balance them with also getting the most out of the negative portion of the lift. For the first hypertrophy exercise for the back, I knock out 3 sets of pull-ups. I'm just doing them with body weight here for the 3 sets, but trainees can and should consider weighted pull-ups as recovery and capability allow. I'm at the point with training the pull-up that I nearly reach muscle fatigue right at the end of each set as it is, so I'll stick with body weight until I'm more consistent with the ability to squarely complete all 3 sets. I've always been slow to improve at the pull-up in particular, so it's just a longer endeavor in my workout. Same as the other lifts I do, I'll then add weight across the cycle to continue to grow the back. I find it important with the pull-up to mentally focus on pulling the arms into my sides to engage the lats, which the pull-up should target very well. Even though I'm doing the same body weight rep each time, the rep scheme numbering target is still a reverse pyramid as I continue to develop this exercise. The seated back extension isolates the lower back, and since the lower back is used in everything from standing straight up at rest to lifting heavy weights, I incorporate this isolation lift to specifically strengthen the lower back as well as grow those muscles in size. Much like the hamstring curl, I find it's worth focusing on engaging specifically the lower back, since the machine can encourage some bouncing or rocking momentum that might compromise the isolation aspect of the exercise. As much as I've highlighted the posterior chain as a whole for its importance in the cockpit, for the hypertrophy lifts I want some exercises that don't engage the entire chain and therefore might threaten recovery for the rest of the week. The reverse pyramid numbering is still my choice here, and I resist on each rep throughout the negative to get everything out of the lift. deadlift. I then move on to seated cable rows to target the lats some more, as well as the rhomboids between the shoulder blades. I'll do my reverse pyramid scheme and attempt throughout the movement to keep my upper body stable from the hips up. Some rocking occurs as I get more fatigued, but the goal is to prevent my lower back from injecting momentum into the lift and taking the focus off the upper back where I want it. At the start of each rep, I allow the cable to pull my shoulders forward slightly. I don't keep my shoulder blades retracted from start to finish. I've got a link to a study in the description that concludes that this choice doesn't seem to have much influence one way or the other on activation of the rhomboid group overall, but in my experience, the brief relaxation of the scapulae lets me target a more complete range of motion for this exercise, and there isn't anything to suggest that it can cause harm. I'll conclude with a reverse pyramid of the lat pull down. I've got this exercise at the end of the day to separate it from the pull-ups, which also smoke the lats in a very similar fashion, so that I've got some time to recover. Technique-wise, I'm still focused on keeping the chest tall and upper body stable to prevent momentum from becoming a driver of the reps. Similar to the pull-up at the end of each rep, I'm trying to pull the arms down and into my back, mentally trying to keep it engaged throughout. Briefly, and for the same reasons as I do in the seated cable row, I'll let the weight extend my shoulders for range of motion, but I don't allow this to develop into a rocking motion. That same study in the description that I already discussed in the seated row section also notes that there is only a non-significant change in muscle activity of the lats and biceps between a wide grip and a supinated grip pull down. So from a muscle activation standpoint, you can use either one to get this additional lat work in. The lat pull down is the final lift in the back related hypertrophy work, but I do have some more accessory work to accomplish on this powerlifting day. For some more accessory work on this day, I usually accomplish torso rotations. I use weighted leg raises like you've already seen me accomplish for ab work on other days, so this exercise allows me to target the obliques more so than standard abdominal work. I'll do a slightly higher rep scheme and just one set each side, but I don't subscribe to the notion that it's important to do 25 or 30 repetitions for the abs, when instead you can grow them with similar considerations that you use for other muscle groups. This exercise also engages the hip flexors and upper back muscles throughout the rotation, so it has some interplay with the other exercises that I've accomplished on this day. I try not to grip the handles too tightly so as to avoid using my arms throughout the rotation. And as always, I'm trying not to use momentum to carry myself through the lift, focusing on complete range of motion with tension on the core throughout. After I do one set on each side for the torso rotations, I will accomplish the next series that you've already seen me talk about in previous videos, and that is the entire day in the gym.
All right, there it is, the deadlift and the back exercises for muscle size. One more quick fighter pilot inject. Just like with the neck issues, lower back issues abound in the fighter pilot community at large, just based on sitting in the seat for an extended period of time. No matter what fighter you're flying, they're not exactly the most ergonomic, and long term they don't do great things for your lower back, which is another reason why I think lower back training, specifically strength and endurance lower back training, and as a corollary hypertrophy training, are all so critical. And I know there are a lot of jobs out there that have people sitting in uncomfortable positions for quite a long time, so I think it's worth prioritizing back in general, because the development of all those related muscle groups can only help that issue. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you thought down below in the comments, or reach out to me any other way, and thanks so much for watching.